its existence is also up for dispute. The lack of documentation of its subsistence in the chronicles of Babylonian history makes many doubt if the wonderful gardens ever pleased the eye of a human, or were just a figment of ancient poets and novelists. Here are some key points and facts about the Hanging Gardens. Excuse me. And let your nature, not mind, be the judge. Number 1. There are two equally credible theories about who built the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. They are assumed to be the work of either semi-legendary Queen Sammu-Rammat, Greek Semiramis, the Assyrian queen who reigned from 810 to 783 BC, or of King Nebuchadnezzar II, the king of the Babylonian Empire, who reigned circa 605 BC to 562 BC. Though there are no compelling arguments about the credibility of any of the assumptions, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are often called the Hanging Gardens of the Semiramis. 2. A few words about the possible builder Semiramis. Through the centuries, the legend of Semiramis attracted not only the attention of Greek historians, but she was also the muse of novelists, poets, and other storytellers. Great warrior queens in history have been called the Semiramis of their times. A gossip around her name would have made a beautiful yellow pressed headline. Semiramis is said to have had a long string of one-night stands with handsome soldiers. Another rumor may have become an inspiration for horror filmmakers. They say that she had each lover killed after a night of passion, so that her power would not be threatened by a man who presumed on their relationship. Number 3. As for the other supposed builder, King Nebuchadnezzar II, it is said that he built the legendary gardens to console his wife Amethyst of Media, because she was homesick for the mountains and greenery of her homeland. Nebuchadnezzar II is most widely known through his portrayal in the Bible. According to the Bible, he conquered Judah and Jerusalem and sent the Jews into exile. Number 4. The gardens presumed to have been located on or near the east bank of the river Euphrates, about 31 miles south of Baghdad, Iraq. A more recent theory purposes that the gardens were actually constructed in the city of Nineveh on the bank of the river Tigris. It is possible that through the ages, the location of the Hanging Gardens may have been confused with the gardens that existed at the city of Nineveh, since tablets from the place clearly show gardens. Number 5. The gardens were about 75 feet, 22 meters high. The image of the gardens is impressive not only for its blossoming flowers, ripe fruit, rushing waterfalls, terraces lush with rich foliage, and exotic creatures, but also for the engineering feat of supplying the massive raised gardens with soil and water. German architect and archaeologist Robert Goldaway, who is known for revealing the semi-legendary Babylon as a geographic and historical reality, discovered huge vaults and arches at the site. He also uncovered an ancient hydraulic system like a pump drawing water from the river. 6. The Hanging Gardens didn't actually hang. The name hanging comes from the Greek word pastos, or the Latin word pensilis, which means more overhanging than just hanging, as in the case of a terrace or balcony. The gardens were probably developed on a structure like a ziggurat and built in the form of elevated terraces, so that the gardens were at different levels, which grew around and on top of a building. 7. Here is a puzzle. In Herodotus' description of the city of Babylon, History's Book 1, sections 178 to 184, where he claims to have been to Babylon himself, he fails to mention the gardens. This is usually taken as proof that they did not exist, but a Dutch historian, Jonah Lendering, thinks that Herodotus' description of Babylon is so extraordinary that he even characterizes it as nonsensical. The 18th century historian Edward Gibbon goes even further and accuses Herodotus of never having set foot in Babylon at all. Despite these considerations, if you try to sketch out the city plan as Herodotus describes it, you'll see that it's pretty accurate in relation to archaeological maps. So how come he never mentions the gardens? 8. Another proof of the consideration that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon never actually existed are many thousands of clay tablets from that period in Babylon. Stone tablets from Nebuchadnezzar's reign give detailed descriptions of the city of Babylonia, its walls, and the palace, but do not refer to the Hanging Gardens. Some historians claim that warriors in the army of Alexander the Great were amazed at the immense propensity of the thriving city of Babylon and tended to exaggerate their experiences greatly. When the soldiers returned to their historic homeland, they had incredible stories to relate about the remarkable gardens, palm trees, and imposing buildings of rich and fertile Mesopotamia. 9. In ancient writings, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were first described by Berossus, a Chaldean, a dynasty in Babylonian history priest who lived in the late 4th century BC. In his book Babylonica, written about 280 BC, the book is lost, but it is summarized by Alexander Polyhistor in circa 1 BC in a treatise of 42 books on world history and geography, which is also lost. That treatise, however, was used by Josephus 37 to 100 AD, who discussed the gardens twice, once in Jewish Antiquities and once in Contra Appionum, against Appian or against the Greeks. 10. Ancient Greek historians Strabo, Philo, and Diodorus gave us these descriptions of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. A. The garden is quadrangular, and each side is a floor plethora long. It consists of arched vaults which are located on checkered cube-like foundations. Ascent of the uppermost terrace roofs is made by a stairway. Strabo. B. The Hanging Garden has plants cultivated above ground level, and the roots of the trees are embedded in an upper terrace rather than in the earth. The whole mass is supported on stone columns. Streams of water emerge from the elevated sources flow down from the sloping channels. These waters irrigate the whole garden is a work of art of royal luxury, and its most striking feature is that of the labor of cultivation is suspended above the heads of spectators. Philo. C. The approach to the garden sloped like a hillside, and the several parts of the structure rose from one another tier on tier. On all this the earth has been piled, and was thickly planted with trees of every kind, that by their great size and other charm gave pleasure to the beholder. The water machines raised the water in great abundance from the river, although no one outside could see it. Diodorus. 11. Recent archaeological digs at Babylon have unearthed a major palace, a vaulted building with thick walls, perhaps the one mentioned by Greek historians, and an irrigation well in proximity to the palace. Although an archaeological team surveyed the palace site and presented a reconstruction of the vaulted building as being the actual Hanging Gardens, accounts by Strabo place the Hanging Gardens at another location nearer the Euphrates River. Other archaeologists insist that since the vaulted building is thousands of feet from the Euphrates, it is too distant to support the original claims, even if Strabo happens to be wrong about the location. The latter team reconstructed the site of the palace, placing the Hanging Gardens in a zone running from the river to the palace. Interestingly, on the banks of the Euphrates, a newly discovered immense 82-foot thick wall may have been stepped to form terraces like those mentioned by the ancient Greek sources. 12. Archaeologists and historians believe that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were not destroyed by an earthquake, but by other minor disasters such as erosion and warfare. The huge construction probably started falling apart under the influence of the weather. Armies and other raiders could have been for its eventual